Hey everybody, Dutch Sense here. 4:58 a.m. Central Time on Friday, November 7th, 2014. And a lot of people have contacted me over this past week regarding the earthquake swarm that's been happening in North Nevada, southeast Oregon. And let me just go ahead and show you first, right off the bat, we're looking at the last few hours of earthquakes in the United States, 2.5 and greater. You can see two back-to-back 4.0 earthquakes, 4.1, and an upper 4.0, 4.7. And those are both in North Nevada, right along the California-Oregon border. I want to show you something that's happened over the last 7 days, and this is what a lot of people are contacting me about. Okay, you see the stack of earthquakes here. Let me go ahead and turn off the rings. Those are the range rings showing possible affected areas. And let's zoom in on the area. Okay, you see this large stack of earthquakes all happening right here in this region. Okay, and let's back this out so you can really get an idea of how many there are. Okay, so, and we're talking a series. Let's turn it up to, let's say, 4.0 and greater so you can see all the larger events. Okay, so we've got multiple 4.0 earthquakes. This is just the last 7 days. Now, let me show you what I found in the mainstream. Okay, this is over on KATU.com. They just have a little itty bitty article here saying Lassen Peak is being watched. And we'll click on this. Okay, here's the screenshot. I don't know if you guys can see this. Let me zoom that in a little bit here. Okay, date and time stamp up here, Thursday, November 6, 2014. And the article says, and it's just a one-sentence article, saying that scientists and geologists are keeping an eye on Lassen Volcano as earthquake swarms have increased in activity. Now, why is that significant? Because Lassen Peak, right here. All right, so we've got a large earthquake swarm happening right here in northwest Nevada, southern Oregon, and it's surrounded by volcanoes. Now, we also have Medicine Lake and Mount Shasta. But scientists watching Mount Lassen or Lassen Peak as an area, and they mention the swarm happening in this area. Now let's zoom in. Let me show you the coordinates on this just so you guys can know we're not just pulling any old coordinates. Let's look up the 4.7 here. It's been downgraded now to a 4.6, and we'll put the coordinates in from the USGS. This will take us into the actual location. Now I've already put them in. I just want you guys to see that I'm putting in the actual coordinates from the official source. Okay. And I'll put a link down below to my previous posts on this location specifically. What we started seeing about 2 months ago were a series of larger earthquakes occur here along this ridge. And I documented this, went in and zoomed in and made sure this is an old volcanic rift, and you can follow the ridge up and you'll see old basalt coming out of the top of what looks like an old split. Now, if there's any question, there's red lava rock also mixed in here, not just black basalt. So you can come in and see that this ridge here is some kind of old volcanic fissure of some kind from a very, very long time ago. Now, it's also on the edge of a basin, and that kind of lets you know also that the area is formerly volcanic. We do have a couple old weathered down what appear to be volcanic peaks. And again, you can come in and see these are blasted away over time, but you can zoom in really close and get a high def shot of the rocks that are at the location. And again, we're talking black basalt, red lava rock. This is not anything shocking since it's up in northwest Nevada. When I documented this, at the same time this was going on, a series of earthquakes started to occur at the other volcanic peaks in California, including Mount Shasta, where the glacier melted off, and they tried to blame that on the drought. However, it was a rapid melt-off causing mudslides, mud flows at the height of the drought. Okay, Medicine Lake experiencing activity, Mono Lake further to the south. Here, a series of earthquakes happening over the last several months. And we're talking swarms in the hundreds. So, hundreds of earthquakes happening at Mono Lake, hundreds of earthquakes happening here at this location in northwest Nevada. And they list it as Oregon, but you can clearly see the actual earthquake spot is located definitely inside of Nevada. So why would they list that as an Oregon earthquake? I don't know. They keep doing that. Obviously, you can just look at the USGS and they're listing it here. Okay. Interesting. We have to keep an eye on it. The fact that they are watching Lassen peak because of the swarm, that to me is newsworthy. That's why I'm putting this video out now. I think it should answer some questions to the people in the region as to what's going on. Okay, it's volcanic related, guys. We already know this. We've been watching it now for almost a year, but really for the last several months, seeing it really pick up in pace. Now also, earthquakes that have kicked off in the U.S. kind of tell the tale of the unrest. This, as if you're a viewer of mine, you know, this is the edge of the North American craton. The unsubducted portion of the plate reaches from up here in the Pacific Northwest, where this 2.5 happened in North Idaho, reaching right down through Colorado and Utah and New Mexico, and making an eastward turn through Oklahoma, and then going back up the East Coast, right through Tennessee, Kentucky, up here to the split in the continent. Now let me turn the rings down here again, and you can connect the dots right along the edge of the plate. The whole plate has been moved yet again. Look at the activity to the west. Okay, can't even fit these all on the screen. There's so many. That's a large number of earthquakes to happen. Now, this is Oklahoma right here in the middle, the fracking operation. The other earthquakes here in Colorado, in southern Colorado, also fracking. These two locations, all fracking earthquakes, every single one of them. No doubt about it. You can go look up each one. Let's just go do that. Let's look up the larger Colorado quake here. I encourage you guys to always go look up these earthquake epicenters. You may find that there's a volcano at the location or a frac well, and the USGS, of course, not telling you about it. They do not list these earthquakes as man-made fracking earthquakes. They just list them and move right along. Don't acknowledge the culprit or what's at the location, usually. All right, so here's the Colorado earthquake, and it is right on the edge of a huge fracking operation. I got tired of marking the wells. There's so many. Let me just back this out. See all these little spots, all those little pads? And in case you're doubting, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. Let that load. There's our apparatus. There's our wellhead. These are injection wells where they inject in wastewater down into the ground to release natural gas. The wastewater causes the shale to fracture and releases the gas. Each one of these. Okay. So, there you go, guys. A lot of unrest going on. We've got volcanic activity picking up back up in the Pacific Northwest. This means we do need to be on watch for a possible larger earthquake event in adjacent areas. And we're talking nearby adjacent areas, not too far away. Maybe as far north as, let's say, Vancouver Island, and as far south as Salton Sea. Over the next 4 to 5 days, we'll have to keep watch. Also, to the east, watch Yellowstone. Watch for additional earthquakes along the eastern coast. This would mean anywhere from Tennessee north through New York, Pennsylvania. We're going to have to watch over the next several days because of the amount of movement to the west. All right, Texas, well, we always see movement after we see follow-up movement here in the Pacific Northwest. Comes down here to the south along the southern edge of the craton. That does spill down into Texas as well. So we'll have to watch the Texas fracking operations for moderate earthquake activity, and that would be in the 3 to 4.0 range. Hope I'm wrong. Hope this all dies out. But right now, they're watching. Again, they are watching Mount Lassen for volcanic activity based upon this earthquake activity. Now, really quick, around the rest of the planet, a lot of movement happening in the West Pacific. The way Earthquake 3D shows this, the higher these are off the planet, the deeper they are into the Earth, so you can get an idea of where the unrest is occurring, how shallow it is. For instance, over here in the U.S., that earthquake swarm, so shallow, some of the earthquakes happening at the surface, 0.0 kilometers deep, right at the surface at the Nevada-Oregon border. That's interesting to see, because if it's volcanic related, they're worried about movement at Mount Lassen. We've got recharging of magma chambers at Mount Shasta, at Mount St. Helens, at Yellowstone, causing the areas to rise. Again, to rise, the entire areas to be uplifted by inches at each location. California, the entire state of California confirmed to have risen by a ½ inch in 1 year's time. They blamed it on the drought. They said that the crust was drying out, and that caused the crust to rise, you see. So I'm not going to get into too much more on that. I don't believe that story. Look at the earthquake activity over the last 7 days, and there's only been a few large earthquakes. So this lets you know the southern and western portion of the Pacific Plate has moved. The northern portion is experiencing swarms, so we need to watch the northern portion in adjacent areas for the large-scale movement, okay? Mexico, look, silence. Hasn't been any large-scale activity in Mexico. Now, in several weeks into months, we're talking no large-scale movement in Mexico. That's about to change. No doubt about it, with the activity all around the rest of the Pacific, reaching down through South America, up through Mexico. Normally, there's activity there, and it has been silent. All the activity to the north, all the activity to the south means you are rested right on the middle of a teeter-totter of pressure, and that's about to break. No doubt about it. Seen it happen over and over again. You don't have to take my word for it. Time will tell, and we're talking a short amount of time, in my opinion. Okay? Have an earthquake plan ready. Be prepared just in case. The amount of activity around the planet surely lets you know that there's some serious earthquake activity coming, and that would be along the lines of the Japan earthquake. I don't know what time frame to put on that. I would say with this activity, the way it is, it's more than it was in 2011, before the Japan earthquake. That's all I can really say. Areas to watch. We can see our cluster points, so we have multiple areas we would need to watch. Again, around the Pacific Ring is the area we're going to need to watch for that large-scale movement. Look, the cluster points are obvious. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just say 5 major cluster points. North of New Zealand at Vanuatu, west through Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, clustering out at Sumatra, the former tsunami location, branching up north right around Japan, large cluster. And then skipping across Kamchatka, Russia, and going right down the North American plate. And we get into what we just discussed at the start of the video, which is the North American craton being displaced, putting pressure on Central America, where we haven't seen any activity in Mexico, and then the volcano activity and large earthquake activity in Nicaragua, Ecuador, and Colombia. That has basically eliminated the pressure, I believe. In this area, we're seeing smaller earthquakes happen over and over again as opposed to the large-scale movement. Further south, Chile, Argentina, Peru. Again, the activity that's been happening here, deep earthquake movement, shallow earthquake movement, setting the stage for larger earthquake movement in the near term. In the next week or so, we're going to have to see compensation movement further to the south. However, I'm really looking at Mexico. I hope I'm wrong, really hope I'm wrong, because the last several big earthquakes that have happened there have been rather damaging. Be safe, guys. Much love.